This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to begin the Lake Stevens Stewart District Board of Commissioners meeting for March 27th, 2024 at 4 p.m. And I'll go ahead and turn the time over to Gary, who will be running the Utility Committee meeting.
Yes, Ryan Donahue is not with us today, so roll call. Everyone's in attendance with the exception of Ryan. Kevin's on the screen there, so did we do a motion to accept that, or just note for the record that?
Just note for the record is fine.
All right, public forum, non-action items.
Mr. President, real quick, can we put something on the agenda, the pledge of allegiance?
Certainly.
We usually do.
Oh, sure, we can do that.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So with that, we have a public forum and the opportunity for the public to speak. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. If we have anyone in the room that would like to speak, please stand up, state your name. Let's see, yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Sean Hare. I work in Everett. I'm staff representative for AFSCME Council 2, and I represent the workers here at the sewer district. I'd like to speak a little bit, if I might, about some emergent for us and ongoing concerns about this merger that's happening and the way it's been done. As a staff representative of a hardworking plant operators, collection service personnel, and administrative staff, I have an obligation to represent them in their best interests. And, I looked at the agenda, we found this plan from the city proposal to move forward. And obviously we're gonna have some concerns about integration and what those impacts are gonna mean to our members. And they're real, right? These aren't, and so I think it's time for us to be a part of this process in a material way. This does involve us. There are mandatory subjects of bargaining that we're gonna have to deal with, right? Either 2 years from now, 9 years from now, immediately. So I just want to, sort of implore you to consider, we have, I think, city groups, Teamsters, AFSCME groups. I just think, the concerns about what this looks like at the end of the day are how we're going to integrate our collection staff. I know there's been some talk about doing it one way or the other. I think of success as all of us working collaboratively towards an outcome that benefits everybody, and that we find, but that takes time and effort. And I want to be a part of that as representatives for our group. And I think they deserve it. I want to communicate with the city. I want to work collaboratively with you where we can. But it's my obligation to work for them on their behalf. So I'll leave my cards here, and I want to continue this conversation moving forward. Thanks.
Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Do we have anyone online that is wanting to express anything? Hopefully they can hear me. See none, we'll move forward. Item number 4, project review, project updates. We'll start off with the sewer district.
We recently got all the permits for the 2C project. So we plan on, for the upgrade project, we plan on going out to bid early April 4th, I believe, is when it'll go to add. We recently had a bid opening for the gravity and force main portions. It hasn't been presented to the commissioners yet, but that'll be on the agenda for tomorrow. And the lift station 5C decommissioning project is physically complete. We're waiting on the notice of completion from Department of Revenue. Should be about 30 days out, and then we'll be done with that project. And that's all I've got on our end.
I have a question for you. You folks are in the process of updating your lift station regs, standards, I guess.
Yep.
And I'm just kind of looking through capital facility plans for the city. We have the transportation benefit district, and we have a list of items. I know you're working on lift stations, but as far as the comp plan, you've got that coming up in the next 18 months or so?
Comp plan, we just went through an update in 2022.
Okay. And so your next one is,
Usually every 6 years unless something substantially changes.
so how do we get that list to mesh with the city's list as far as capital projects?
That can be done at staff level through meetings. Yeah, and we worked collaboratively with the city when we were doing our last comp plan. So
Okay. And the one that I'm going to highlight is Soper Hill Road. It's on our TBD list for, I think it's number 4 or 5 or 6. So probably completed in the next, say, 3 years. And you've got Soper Hill trunk line 2035. So it'd be nice to do everything at one time. So that's kind of the one thing I'm pointing to, as to maybe discussion could take place to realign those, I guess, maybe.
And I think that's always going to be kind of an issue, is that there's always kind of competing priorities. We've got lift stations and stuff that would fall higher in the priority list, not necessarily on the same timeline as far as directing the revenue to get to first. So, but yeah, more than willing to work with city staff on seeing if we can move things around.
I just hate to see a road get improved and then a couple of years later you come back and tear it up. Screw line, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So anyway, commentary. Okay, moving along, do we have any project updates on the city side?
I'll just broadly, for the first quarter of this year, we have 579 permits in. 237 of those are building permits and 54 of those are land use permits.
And I think you mentioned last night you're seeing an uptick in activity.
Definitely, there was a large increase in single family permit applications prior to the adoption of the revised building code.
Anything, Aaron?
We are finalizing design of the Main Street project, which is, goes to Councilman Peter's mentioned, is sort of aligning projects. So we're finalizing design. We're going to get that out to add pretty soon, next few weeks. So that's consistent with the timeline we've talked about in the past. So no surprises. The goal is to have the sewer project constructed and out of the way before we come in and finish the road, surface, walkways. So we're still on track for that.
It's good to hear. Okay, anything else? I think we covered that. Okay, so on to number 5, information sharing, planning, coordination, management, assumption update. As indicated, I think at your last board meeting, Gene, city administrator, informed you that he was going to send over the documentation for the assumption agreement, as well as the documentation that outlines the work that the staff has done, the implementation plan. And so we are kind of to a point, I guess, we're looking for direction, comments. And I hope you've all had a chance to review this. I had a conversation with Commissioner Koshi on Monday. And so I guess specifically, I think from the city side, we're wondering where the other 2 commissioners are in this issue and looking for feedback at this point.
I had a chance to review it and I have a number of notes and I'm looking forward to meeting with the other commissioners tomorrow regarding that, and we'll discuss that. So we appreciate all the information. And I think my one concern is that I was curious who the intended audience is for the implementation plan. Is it staff or is it community? This
I'm not understanding.
So we have this implementation plan, so who's the intended audience of who would read this, or Jim Singh?
Well,
Who are we writing this for?
I think it's kind of the guidebook to walk us down this path. And I mean, it's been collaborated with the city staff and your staff as to who it's intended to. I guess I would say all of the above, in the sense it's intended for the public, it's intended for the union representative, it's
Okay.
intended for the employees,
Okay,
employees on the city, the elected officials.
but none of it's enforceable, right? It's just our plan, our goals, and the guidebook moving forward, right? Did you say that, or?
Well, we've had this, I guess, discussion before as to how do you enforce something? I mean, what is the sewer district looking for?
No, I was just, oh, go ahead, Kevin, sorry.
You finish your thought.
Please, it's like gone. Go ahead.
You know, if I take a step to start with, I think the staff's done a great job to dig into the what's and hows of what I'll call the tactical, you know, the accounting, what accounting system, the workflows, those type of things. What we're left is with some of the hard stuff, which we've referred to as the 3 pillars. And I see 3 broad paths forward. One path forward is that we stay with the 2005 agreement and we merge in 8 to 9 years. A second path forward is the city restarts litigation. A third path forward is the city embraces that an earlier merger will require those 3 pillars to be articulated, that have been articulated over multiple meetings over the past 12 months and longer, actually, that is reflected in the enforceable part of the agreement. And so that's kind of, I would certainly promote item, you know, the option 3, although I would certainly accept option 1. And if we go forward with option 3, then what I would respectfully request is that that agreement comes back to us that has those things reflected, those pillars reflected in the enforceable part of the agreement. So that's probably a shorter summary of some of the things Councilmember Peters Hagen and I spoke about on Monday, but that's my stance on it. I haven't talked to my 2 fellow commissioners about it. Look forward to maybe getting into that on Thursday, as Commissioner Wright mentioned. But that's my big. Those are the 3 paths I see. And if the city's not, you know, doesn't see a path to reflect those in the enforceable agreement, I think we're in a really tough spot. So that's my take.
Well, I have a real hard time when we've talked, and I'll pick on the safety issue. I don't know how you enforce that. We're under the umbrella of a regulatory agency that would be no different under the city's operation or the sewer district's operation.
And my response to that would be none of the 3 pillars are reflected in the enforceable agreement today. None of them, right? And so let me take an easy one. Rates, very easy to articulate. We have a 40-year history of keeping rates at or below the rate of CPI. So to ask that to continue for the next 8 years seems to be a very reasonable, it's not raising the bar, it's keeping the bar the same. That would be a very easy thing to articulate in the enforceable part of the agreement. We could do carve outs if it's a catastrophic, we could address it. That would be an easy thing to address. That's not addressed in there. So while safety might be a harder one, and I call it environmental protection, but I do think there's some things, and I'm repeating myself, I've mentioned these before, but if we think about things like standards and capital plans, agency relationships and staffing levels, there's things that can be reflected in that environmental piece. So, but none of those pillars, not a single element of those pillars is reflected in the enforceable agreement today. And that's what I would respectfully ask, some thoughtful consideration on the city side, and come back with
an agreement that makes a run at reflecting most, if not all of those in the agreement from their perspective.
Hey, Kevin, I suppose I would put it back into your hands. They're your pillars. You put them in there and bring them back to us.
Well, we did. I mean, their original agreement, I think back in February of 2023, so 13 months ago, we did put a lot of work into that. So we've made a run. A lot of that stuff got changed and condensed, which is fine. I mean, that's how this stuff works. I respect that. But it's also been all stripped out. And so I hear the ask, though. I would be certainly open to discussing with my fellow commissioners on Thursday, tomorrow, and talk about how that might look. You know, if it's a list or maybe writing out what we've talked about verbally before. But there's been a lot of dialogue about those things. It's just, you know, how it lands with me is they've just kind of been set aside and ignored and not reflected in the agreement. But we could articulate those in writing, I suppose. That would be one thing we could discuss tomorrow if that's the ask.
And I think from my position, just looking at it, there's a couple questions I have. I mean, unfortunately, as a board, we haven't met since we got this, and we only meet in regular session twice a month, and it's tomorrow. So I think there's some things that I just want to bounce off of legal when they attend our meeting tomorrow in our session and go there. And because, I mean, this is a document that, as I think was stated earlier, it's been at the intended audiences, everybody, you know, the public, the labor groups that are represented in there. I want to hear from, it is a change to, you know, working conditions, benefits. So I think that as labor and their folks have announced, you know, they want to kind of take a look and give a shot. You know, they deserve to give us some feedback too. So absolutely, I think that to be equitable to everybody, that would be it. What I would just say at this time, it was good to go through it. I'm glad something did come through because we're making progress, but I can't move forward on anything yet because obviously I want to ask legal a couple things. And like I said, you know, as a 3-member board, 2 makes a quorum. I can't just pick up the phone and call either one of my cohorts unless we're in a public meeting. So, or, you know, go into a session that's privileged under the RCW. So that's where I am. I'm not going to give comment and feedback anymore on some of the things because obviously I want to hear what everybody else has to say. But I do want to hear from labor eventually because, well, like I said, it's a change to working conditions, benefits, you know, so those are mandatory subject to bargaining. So
When will the next transition staff meeting resume? Because, so together, as I understand, together you came up with this document, is that right?
The plan document we were given, and then we had the 2 meetings that we were gonna give our feedback to. Those were the 2 that were canceled. So we haven't provided feedback on the plan.
On this one you haven't?
Correct.
Okay.
But that plan was not solely written by the city of Lake Stevens.
This one wasn't.
The plan was written by the city.
Right, with input from you folks. I mean, you've been meeting previous to that.
Previous to that,
Obviously,
yeah,
some
we
discussion
discussed it
that took
together, we
place,
came up with it.
kind of some outlines, frameworks, things of that sort.
But you haven't provided edits to this?
No.
Okay. So when do you all consider meeting again to, now that you have a specific document together? I realize we have to give feedback on that too, but.
I don't think there's a meeting scheduled. We're waiting for feedback from you, Barry. I think you asked for a Word document, what, a few days ago or something? And so, and you're recording.
So you want the staff and us to provide feedback for the
Certainly.
plan document before that group meets again? Is that right?
Well, I guess what would be the purpose of the meeting if we don't have feedback from you?
I just didn't know if it was still in a discussion format or you just want straight edits. That's what I'm asking.
I mean, I don't care if it's discussion or format. I just, feedback would be helpful. I think that's, we're looking for exchange of ideas, things. I know staff has taught and was kind of the basis for this document, I guess, it's my understanding, we're the ones that actually typed it up and put it in a format, but it's not been an exclusive document that's been prepared by our staff with no
So,
input from the
Did you
the sewer
two
district.
help put together this document? I didn't do any other writing.
So Amy, all these ideas in here are ideas that were vetted out
Okay,
since both staffs have met over the last 5-6 months, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So none of that's surprising.
right.
It's just in rough form.
Okay, perfect. So then,
There's a few things that were surprising.
okay, so then how do you want the edits back in what way, what format?
Well, if we have a Word document, what I think would be best is to do it like we do legislative strikeouts, just the track changes so everybody kind of gets an idea. I think that we start with the document you guys sent over, we'll do some legislative, and that way you get it back and you guys can see and then we can all work off that. Because I know each time it goes back and forth, you'll lose strikeouts in different colors, you know. I mean, I utilize it every day in tech reviews, so.
Is that the preferred format for you all then?
I don't care what format it is, we just want some
Something.
feedback.
I think that'll advance it.
Okay,
That's-
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and so who's the lead on your group doing this? Who wrote this? Or it looks great.
It's been a shared responsibility amongst the three of us.
The
Who
three of
wants
you?
it?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
I guess I would suggest if,
Shoot it to Gene.
yeah.
Jean, okay.
So I guess I would ask, out of respect, when do you think those comments will be heading in our direction?
Well, hopefully we won't be here for like 4 hours tomorrow doing it. I think that is what it, but, you know, I think I can say from what I have a little list of things that I just want to get clarification on. I can't speak to the other commissioners or what staff is, because when we got it, I looked at it, I haven't really reached out to staff to go through and sit in that. I mean, it was kind of like, I knew we were coming into this meeting. And then when they said, oh, this is going to be in there, because I was thinking it was, if we weren't going to use this tomorrow, this document today, we'd have time to discuss it tomorrow. But we're still going to have time to discuss it because we weren't sure what was going to be delivered. And so that we've got it, we can take a look at it. So I didn't bring my notes of what I wanted to have discussion on. And so like I said, I can't speak to the others, but.
I'm less concerned about, I'm most focused on the enforceable document, the work plans and so forth will end up stemming from that enforceable document to a certain degree. So yeah, I'm less concerned about the other pieces, the tools in which to implement than the enforceable piece in which it's founded on.
So Kevin, when you're talking about enforceabilities, are you talking about what you proposed in the February 23 document that you sent over? That your attorney?
Not entirely. I mean, that had everything in it from accounting to everything else. And that was a stem to stern type of, covered the entire waterfront. I'm talking specifically about the 3 pillars that we've been talking about since then.
Specifically about your relief language in here, where you have the ability to seek specific performance in Snohomish County Superior Court. We're going to argue in Superior Court over safety standards.
I'm not going to get into the specific T's and C's of it. My expectation was that a contract or the legal enforceable piece from the city would come forth with the dialogue that we've reflected the past 12 months in those 3 pillars. Currently, it is not. All of it could be negotiated, but currently there's nothing in there about the 3 pillars. And so that's my main concern. And my main focus is around the enforceable portion of the agreement. If it's not enforceable, it can be changed. It's going to get a whole lot less focus, at least from my perspective, than the enforceable contract itself. How things, what the remedies are and all that, way too early even to talk about that, I think. Got to get down to it be as enforceable as what you have in the agreement currently, but in a broader set that reflects the pieces we've been talking about.
Okay, so the priority is the assumption agreement, correct?
That's from my perspective, if it's not enforceable, it can be changed. Therefore, I'm going to give it a lot less time than the enforceable piece, the actual agreement, Ts and Cs.
Okay, so we'll say that for the commissioners, that's our priority, the assumption agreement, and then, right? And then the edits of the implementation plan. Does that seem fair? Brett?
Yeah. I don't care what order you do it in, I just, we're looking for something.
Yep. Nope.
Kind of goes on and on and on.
I know, but we did give this over a year ago, right? This is the first time we've gotten it back from you. So we're ready. Your edits, official.
Well, what staff has worked on to get to this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we kind of took a time out from that,
Yeah.
and then staff got together and said, let's take a shot at this.
Perfect.
It wasn't purposeful.
Oh, no, I'm just
way.
stating that, we're trying to be thorough.
Right.
Okay,
We were trying to get collaboration.
great. Thank you so much.
So,
So we figure out a timeline, we'd see some comments back. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month.
I think after we have our meeting tomorrow, we'll let staff know where we're at and we'll have Mariah shoot Gene an idea of what it can be. I don't want to commit to something if I'm, if we're not there, right?
Right, and there are three very different perspectives, so, right, it just as you're working with your city council, it's the same with us in trying to get everyone's feedback.
Mr. Mayor, it's a fair ask. I think a date for a date makes the most sense to me. So give us till the end of the week and we'll come back and tell you where we're at, but we want to give you a date on both the red lines in the broader document as well as a date on when we could spin back around the enforceable document with some thoughts.
Appreciate it.
okay. Anything else on that item?
Thank you for all the work on that and the collaboration, because this is this is a huge step.
Well, thank you to the Sewer District staff team too. I think that all this was like a big collaboration, and even though we put it into words, we worked really closely together to come up with a good plan. And I will just add, even though we wrote the implementation plan, the legal agreement we wrote together and struck out of the language in a room together and agreed to that and proposed that and stripped it down. So that was collaborative. Those ones shouldn't be surprises. I think all we did was accept track changes and clean up minor details, but.
Yeah, you will find language in this agreement that's reflected in your January 23rd, 2023 proposal. So with that, moving on to action items, approval of February 28th meeting minutes.
So move.
We have a second.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting minutes are approved. Next meeting tentatively scheduled for the last Wednesday this is April already?
We're just about there.
Gee whiz.
That would be the 24th. It was the last Wednesday of April.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
I'm good with it. I'll put it in the schedule.
4 p.m.
Yes.
Perfect.
Anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
Great. We're back into the Lake City
Here, everybody.
Board of Commissioner meeting.
I'll make a motion. We adjourn this one.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.